Hi, my name's Nicole Bard Chappell, and the journal that I chose to read was The Dual Language as a Social Movement, Putting Language on a Level Playing Field. This was by Regina Cortina, Carmina Makar, and Mary Faith Mount Kors. This is a current issue. What does the researcher set out to do? The current problem is the increase in dual language learners in an English-only education system, inequities in access to education and quality of instruction. Should students have the right to learn in the language that they understand? Now, the purpose of this article was to address the quest of school leaders and parents, which we call empowerment networks, to achieve student academic results for Latino students through dual language programs. The dual language movement seeks to level the playing field for all learners despite language and socioeconomic backgrounds. This was a qualitative study, and it was using Manuel Pastor's social movement framework. What was studied was 2 districts. Within that was 7 dual language programs. The goal was to identify how educators adapt dual language models to the needs of their changing communities. Why does the researcher feel it is relevant? Well, in the United States, dual language movement is connected to the civil rights movement of the 1960s. The population of individuals who spoke a language other than English in America has doubled over the past 3 decades and is 4 times greater than the population growth at this point. The International Agreement, also known as the Conventions on the Right of the Child in 1989, basically states that a child's education should respect their cultural identity, language, and values, and children's ethnic, religious, or linguistic minority should not be denied the right to use his or her own language. U.S. demographics are currently changing, and they're changing rapidly. We need to identify ways to support English learners in dual language classrooms through educational reform. The type of research design that was used in this journal was a case study, and like I mentioned before, it was through the use of 7 dual language programs within 2 districts in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York. And currently over 100 dual language programs in New York are in place within multiple grade levels. Data was collected in 2010 in 3 areas, which are demographic characteristics, program model, and extent of professional development opportunities available to teachers in both languages. The use of purposeful sampling and interviews of staff, which included 16 teachers, administrators, dual language coordinators, principals, assistant principals, parents of English learners, and 2 researchers in California and New York were used in this study. The findings and conclusions. Changes in demographics change the way a program can be implemented due to who it is serving. For example, one district's demographics could rise equally among all groups, while other groups will have a significant rise in one group, requiring programs to be adapted to changing demographics. Programs can also overpopulate, or the lack of enrollment can drop programs. And in fact, this was the case for some of those schools in this study. Dual language has been considered effective because they pair groups of students of different sociocultural and linguistic backgrounds within a classroom. School programs rely heavily on community support and demographics. Because of these 2 aspects, dual language programs are being phased out in the Manhattan area when they should be increasing. For example, parents in this area worked with New York Education Committee to adopt an English-Mandarin dual language program, but unfortunately it was denied because no one in the community spoke Mandarin or Chinese. Interviews noted that schools in California can be parent-driven based on wealth and higher education, while principals in New York claim to be student-driven, in which the best interests of the students are taken into consideration, including cultural support, academic success, and address power imbalances in dual language programs so they do not become foreign language electives. Parents have played a large role in the development of dual language programs. These groups of parents felt strongly supported by their schools. There's a strong connection between schools and the community. Parents are involved in multilingual committees and community education councils. Students have reported pride in their language through dual immersion programs because it wasn't being lost. Teachers are also using innovative strategies such as teaching Spanish in the morning while the brain is fresh and awake, and English in the afternoon. Improved language arts scores and grade level benchmarks were achieved in both languages. It is also important to note that the only school to have implemented a dual language program for the entire school was the only school in the study to receive an A on the New York State report card, where 100% of its students made AYP, which is adequate yearly progress. Each language was shown value through equal hours of instruction in each language. It was suggested that schools introduce dual immersion to the entire school to show equal value of all languages and cultures. Dual language is beneficial to all students in developing a higher level of academic excellence, and students succeed when teachers are equipped to teach both languages effectively and have opportunities for professional development. How are the researchers' findings or conclusions similar or dissimilar to ideas presented in this course? We know that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching. Programs other countries or even states are using cannot be copied and pasted. They must be adapted to the needs of the students and the community. The U.S. has uneven development across the nation. The higher socioeconomic status, the better the teachers and education. Most schools in the U.S. do not have dual language learning opportunities for their students. It is interesting to note that New York has over 100 of them already integrated. This is a good example of how imbalanced we are as a nation regarding educational practices and a global mindset. Families place a great importance on education, which teaches children that education is valuable. Parents are less involved in education today due to working full-time, being single parents, etc. Unlike other countries, the parents in this study seem to be more involved in education than most throughout the United States. In the U.S., the investment of money is how Americans tend to demonstrate their dedication to a problem. However, the more money spent in one area requires a cutback in another, and this causes a lot of chaos and educational inequalities. Parents in the business community may influence the success or demise of a program, which we saw in the Mandarin English example, where there wasn't enough support in the community, so it wasn't put through. Schools also have a choice to serve as reflectors of the existing social order or agents of social change. In most other areas of the United States, dual language is set to the side, and cultural considerations of other students are being ignored. In this study, it was important to these schools that the dual language programs support and respect students' cultures, giving them the opportunity to learn in their own native language in addition to English, while attaining academic success through both languages. Some areas of the United States have adopted a global perspective of education through dual language learning, like those in New York, in order to engage in a global economy. However, the U.S. as a whole needs to get on board and place funding in areas that will help all students, not just some. In my opinion, the researchers overall did a great job in obtaining data for their study and appropriately making conclusions based on their findings. The instrument used to collect data was appropriate and confidentiality agreements were appropriately in place. One of the goals of the study was to identify how teachers adapt dual language models to fit the communities. I felt that this area could have been researched more in depth. It lacked proper research into the types of methods used to adapt the program to fit student needs. The findings were more general in this aspect. Data collection was impressive regarding student language arts scores and AYP scores. This information is important for teachers, parents, and community leaders to acknowledge in order to begin adopting more dual language programs throughout the United States. Since research tells us that having more than one dual language program in each school is overall more effective, that it is an important aspect to consider when beginning to implement these programs into American schools. I believe all children deserve the right to have quality education. In my mind, this starts with the implementation of dual language learning. Not only are the cognitive benefits to bilingual individuals, but more jobs are requiring bilingualism to accommodate community population or to communicate internationally. America is one of the only countries that does not require multiple language learning throughout education, which is a major reason why our education systems are falling behind and our economic growth is being affected. This puts all children on an equal playing field despite language or socioeconomic differences. And this is why I felt that this study would be very beneficial to American education.